And we're live.
Hey, did I ever tell you about the time that my uncle let me know that wrestling was fake and I didn't believe him?
I have never heard that.
And then I had to find out how wrestling, and I found out it was fake, and it broke my little heart. So my uncle made me cry when I was a child about wrestling being fake. I was a big wrestle WWF.
Oh no!
Yes, loved it. Yes, Rocky Johnson's daddy, the Soul Patrol, and my aunt was beautiful lady in LA. And so me and my cousins are out to eat. Now this is after my uncle had just made me cry, telling me that wrestling was fake, and I was, it's not fake. And you guys know him as Debo.
Yes.
Yeah, so Debo back in the day was this wrestler named Zeus. Did you ever see his Zeus character? Cockeyed, he'd slam himself in the head with iron bands and beat up Hulk Hogan. He had a crush on my aunt.
Shut up.
So there we are, we're these little munchkins, and here comes this dude that beats people up, throws them through trash cans, and he's, how are you guys doing? And he's so nice. And I was like, man, this is bullcrap. The wrestling's fake. I quit.
Shut up.
Yeah, so that's how I found out wrestling was fake.
That's what made you believe it?
Yeah, well, yeah. If you go, when you're done, Google Tiny Lister when he was the character Zeus, and he's not
Josh, can you pull this up for us? Are you allowed to pull things up for us? Dang it. Okay.
Yeah, when you
don't have the Rogan powers.
when you go do it, you're gonna go like this. Oh, he was like, that cockeye was well over here.
Shut up.
Is he in movies?
Yeah, he was with Hulk Hogan.
That's
It was Zeus in that movie.
All you gotta know about Debo is that was James Harrison's idol, so you know the guy's the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know who Debo is.
There you go. Guys, welcome to Muscle Matters. Today, we're joined by our lovely co-host, Mr. Steve Southers, and how does Pat McAfee do it, man? He has the awesome wrestling intros for guests. I want to have that ability, but I wasn't a wrestling fan growing up. I knew it was fake right off the bat.
No, this out of the couch, coming from Division One.
There you go, Mr. Sam Wybara. Sam is our director of training at Grindhouse Strength and Conditioning, and thus my right-hand man. Sam, what's up, baby?
How's it going, guys?
He was an accomplished Division I swimmer, had a topsy-turvy career. Sam, tell us in 30 seconds or less.
I started swimming a little bit when I was growing up in Indiana. Swam club there, moved to Colorado, got coached by a guy named Chris Webb and Mark Morehouse, and they accelerated my career quite a bit. Got some Division I looks later on in my high school career. Went through a weird thing getting recruited. A couple of schools I committed to got cut. Then I ended up at CSUB and did 3 years through COVID there.
Very good. Very good. Now, I swam competitively. I'm not saying this like toot my own horn until like 8th grade when I had to make a choice on like, did I want to look like a football player or a swimmer, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you could say I had a wealth of experience, right?
I want to get girls or not.
That's exactly right, actually. But I was still wearing the jammers. At what age are jammers considered not cool for swimmers?
Shoot, I dropped my jammer in like 6th grade.
Oh, dude. Do you have a lot to show or what, dude?
No, you never do. It's always just like, oh,
well,
man.
I'm pretty sure the pool's going to be kind of cold a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
It's called shrinkage.
Yes, I know.
Okay. So, long story short. I was still rocking the jammer, so you could probably tell how much of a dweeb I was, right? Yeah. Now, swim, that's an interesting background to come from. Now you're a career strength coach.
Yes.
Swim, now that we've trained so many of them in large part due to you and all the people you've brought from the clubs you've been a part of, it strikes me as like one of these sports that, I don't know, I feel like the burnout rate is super high.
It is very high.
Why is that? I feel like people are either like all in it or they're in it and like hating their life.
Yeah.
What is up with that?
I think there's a dogmatic approach to it. I think a lot of swim coaches aren't aware that science exists.
Ooh.
And so I think they take whatever the coach that they had did and then apply it to their swimmers. And so a lot of people have this approach to where like, hey, I'm going to do long, slow distance swimming because that's what I did. And I was a good swimmer. So that's what I'm going to make everybody else do that I coach. And so it's like not methodologies, but I use quotes because they're not methods. There's no basis on them. They're like, hey, we do ultra short race pace training. Now that is turning into like a massive rage right now because people are realizing, hey, we overtrain our swimmers.
Ooh.
So they're actually using science-based principles to say, hey, we need to have a specific day that is all out off the block stuff. And we need to have a day where it's repeated effort stuff. So it's very much like, hey, we're taking a strength and conditioning approach to this
Interesting.
now. But back when I was swimming, and still now, swim coaches become swim coaches because they're good swimmers.
Would you say that most swim coaches, and I have a beef with swim coaches. I went to one of my niece's
there you go.
swim classes that they were paying money for this guy who was supposed to be this certified coach, and he was a great swimmer back in the day. For him that totally have his whole back turned. And he was just making the kids swim laps, and after a while, the kids just put their head down, put their head up, they were paying zero attention to the children, and they were paying hundreds of dollars a week for this coach to make their kids better.
Yeah, man. I could talk ad nauseum about this stuff, but there's not really a criteria or certification that you can earn to become a professional coach in swimming. I would imagine it's probably like that for football or other sports as well, to where like you can literally own a club team with a USA Swimming certification that says like you passed the background check. So you get a background check, you can own a club, open a club, have up to infinite number of athletes under your care with zero teaching of like how to train or no business knowledge. Nothing. And so a lot of times what happens is kids graduate from college, they swam in college, they're like, well, now I need a job, so now I'm going to go swim coach. And then they have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and it oftentimes looks like what you described, which is where coaches, they will give kids, we call it garbage yardage, but it's like long slow distance. It's like, all right guys, we're doing 8 200s today, they're on 3 minutes. Okay, keep your eyes on the clock, and they're just saying ready to go for 2 hours. That's it.
Goodness sakes.
And far too often, I mean, that's what leads to the burnout that Blake was talking about is, okay, then you look at the shoulders getting overused. Okay, and I'm guessing that if a coach that's prescribing that, they have no idea how to take care of the shoulder.
Yeah. So like when I went to watch the practice, coming from sports backgrounds where, hey, with individual drills, you did this, did that. And I was just sitting there going, they're just swimming laps and he's not even paying attention to what they're doing.
Yep.
And this is going to make them a better swimmer. And I'm not ignorant with swimming. My older cousins had scholarships for what's that thing you guys jump out the way? Yep.
Yeah.
So they had scholarships on polo. So I'm familiar with swimming because I had to learn how to swim. And I remember they would do different types of things, and this was in the 70s, not just swim laps.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there is the hidden aspect of swimming is there's a technical aspect as well. That's very important. And a lot of your time in the pool should be spent technically mastering the strokes that you're doing to limit inefficiencies. Now, the other thing is you can train that outside of the pool. One of the quotes that I learned from Chris Webb, he does small form strength and conditioning for large club teams. He helps them implement it because swim coaches have very little resources at their disposal, and what they have is mostly decided by a board. So
they don't have weight rooms next to the pool.
They don't, which they should though. They should. And there's no money for it though. So Chris takes, hey, you can do this here with TRX and rings and
that is
dumbbells.
So smart.
Yeah, at our club in Fort Collins, he had benches built that would open up like a treasure chest, and he had dumbbells and kettlebells built so that you could push the benches back against the wall and not have any. It wasn't going to make the owner of the pool or the pool manager upset because it's just acting as a seat. So
well, is that because like most of these clubs are like renting pools, rec centers,
yes.
YMCA's, that kind of stuff? So obviously they're kind of at the mercy of, I mean, really, what is that? The public park system, whatever that is,
Because most high schools don't even have a pool.
Not here, they don't. I don't know what it's like in Colorado,
Yeah.
but that's genius though. It's like disguised as storage. You put a lock on it when you're
Yep.
not around, and it's extra seating.
That's literally it was really, really smart, and he's very ahead of his time for that stuff. And I think that the trouble is like aquatic resources. There's not many, like you talked about. I mean, there's the Kern Aquatic Center here, but I mean, nobody's renting that out. No clubs.
Think how long it took to get the district pool. You know, the one over by Ridgeview. You know, well, that's so interesting, man. Do you think that maybe those overuse? I take that back. Maybe that malpractice you mentioned, just the kind of turning your back and just keep going, guys. That kind of an attitude comes from swim being well, let's face it. It's like common knowledge. My 80-year-old grandma knows that if she's like, not feeling great, she's going to work it out in the pool. It's very low impact. Do you think the coaches abuse that because it's like, it's not like football?
Yes, I think that it's there's no contact in it really, so people don't see like if you guys did you play football?
Yes.
Yeah, so you guys played football. Like
Steve was a professional chess player.
I could tell by his arm size. But if in football, like you guys were just ramming your heads into pads or into each other the entire practice, that would raise some red flags. And I think that going in and swimming freestyle for 3 hours or swimming the same stroke for 3 hours should raise red flags, but it doesn't. And like I said, people assume that they can do that because it worked for them or because their coach had success with it. And they don't see the burnout levels that most kids face where, they don't end up swimming 4 years in college or they don't end up finishing high school, whatever that burnout point is. But it's just constant overuse. And the thing is like Chris says, if you can't do it in the pool or if you can't do it on land, you shouldn't do it in the pool.
Whoa.
And so I think that applies to a lot of different sports that we work with on a daily basis. And, there are movements in sport that if you can't do it or be strong in a position in a weight room, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Give me an example of that. What does Chris mean? Like if you can't do it on land, you shouldn't do it in the pool.
For example, in swimming, constantly the scap contract retract. So you're pulling, but when you're pulling, the scaps are constantly doing this, right?
Yeah.
Butterfly backstroke, your scaps are constantly retract, contract. So the biggest thing that he implemented to rid of shoulder issues were twofold. The first one is tons of crawling. So we're in positions on the floor where our scabs are moving opposite arms all the time, both arms all the time, rotating forward and backward. Those positions are prepping the shoulder to say, okay, like I need to be stable here because that's what water is. We talked about this earlier today. Water is constant resistance. The other thing that he did really, really well was he introduced dynamic warm-ups in terms of we were using bands. So swimmers constantly they're like, okay, I'm gonna go warm up, and they go get in the pool. And so
they go do the sport.
Yeah, it's like maybe
that's what I would have thought as a warm up. Like, okay, I'm gonna go jump in the water.
Let's go warm up for football with the hitting drills.
Like sprinters. If a sprinter got on a track and was like, I'm just gonna run, and then I'm gonna run to go run my event to prep for it. Can be like, hey man, like, is there not a dynamic aspect to your warm up? Do you not do any mobility work, stability work? What are we talking here? And so what he did is he was like, okay. He would cut up these tiny little these bands, and we would do dynamic shoulder, which is you're doing taking the band. It's very much just band pull aparts, wall slides. You're holding the band and you have your scaps retracted all the way up, all the way down against the wall. We would do more crawling with the band around our wrists, so you're constantly pulling here. A lot of it was, hey, you're going to protect the most common issue is the rotator cuff in swimming. And so you're going to protect the rotator cuff by actually using the posterior of your upper back.
Where would somebody find literature like that at, if it exists?
I think the most common one that is like super old and good, and where a lot of his stuff comes from, is Vern Gambetta.
Mhm.
Vern was very, very progressive in the sense of like non-barbell training for athletes, and the company that Chris actually works, well, I think he's like a kind of part owner at this point. That is Vern. It's Gambetta Training Systems, but now it's like Chris is like the guy that runs all of the swimming, the Olympic swimming stuff. So, I mean, I could name Emma Wyatt. Is a super big one. I think he works with a couple other girls that are on the national team, but Emma Wyatt won freaking silver at the Olympics in the 400 IM, and he works with her.
Yeah, because everybody knows somebody that played football, baseball, or basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, no, get this right here. But for like a kid that's trying to swim,
absolutely, yeah. Gain, I'll plug him. I mean, Gain Training Systems in Gain Swimming is on Instagram. He's a great resource. If you're a swim club looking for stuff, or come to Grindhouse and we can,
you beat me to it. What would somebody want to ask a person that was going to coach their child? What should be like check 1, check 2, check 3 of the things that this person should know to go, hey, I know I am paying somebody that is going to adequately train my child?
I think that if you're going to a swim club and they don't have the next 4 weeks of practices planned out, then you have a problem to start. I think that if you were just looking for a barrier entry to, hey, I want to get my daughter into swimming or son into swimming, and you're looking for clubs and you want them to actually enjoy the sport and be in it for a long time and they enjoy it, ask the coach, hey, what's your practice going to look like 4 weeks from now? So that's going to tell you a lot about what you need to know about what they're doing in the pool and if they have a plan for them. Now, if they're a younger kid, if they're 10 and under, maybe you definitely need to ask questions like, what are the technique progressions and how are you preparing them to be an athlete, not just a swimmer? Because again, if you're trying to,
because you are paying money for somebody
lot of it
to train your child, because you're investing in your child's passion. Like, and that's what made me upset when I was like, they're paying you money, bro, to make this person better.
But you're also a coach, so you're looking a little bit more critically at other coaches.
But it's still, if it would have been me, I'd have pushed him in the pool.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, bro, so let's go for a swim together.
Yeah,
Sam, you said something I want you to expand upon. Okay. What do you mean by what is your plan to make my son or daughter a better athlete, not just a better swimmer?
Well, I think that across the country with swim programs, youth swim programs, the dry land aspect, going back to what Chris said, if you can't do it on land, you probably shouldn't do it in the water. There's no education on, hey, like this is the foundational movement patterns of our sport. So like if you're flip turning all the time, you should probably be able to do a somersault on land.
Whoa.
So I actually basically stole the crawling core that we use for our little kids from the Gambetta Training System, which is Chris's stuff. Because I believe that if you can move that way, you can move a lot of different ways. So, but like I said, if you look at the development of the swimmer, they constantly run with their feet pronated, their ankles pronated, right? Like they run striking from the heel. They're in their sport naturally. Their ankles are in flexion constantly because they're kicking. So they end up looking like frogs on land because they have no idea how to actually work their feet and work their ankles. And that's a problem because if you're swimming in a 25-yard pool, it's basically a vertical jump every time you push off, and if you're weak in the feet, that's when you see a lot of guys that have played other sports dominate the short course pool because they're explosive off the walls. They've jumped before. But you need to understand as a parent, is this coach developing my son either to be injured or have negative effects from the repetitive aspects of swimming, or to resist that and be, I guess you could say, more of a naturally athletic person on land that does swimming?
Sure.
because those are the best. Those are the, end up being the best swimmers anyway.
Should a coach be able to send home homework for them to do on the land?
That's a
Yeah.
good question.
That's good. That's a great question. I think yes. I think it depends on how much time you end up having with the kids. For a guy that's coaching 12 and under kids, I would say yes, that'd be great. But if you are coaching anybody 14 and under and you have 6 hours a week with the kids, or even 12 because you get 12 hour or 2 hours a night. So you get 2 hours a night and 2 hours on Saturday, right? It's typically like most 14 and under swim programs. Would 6 of those hours be better spent directly coaching those kids, learning a little bit about strength and conditioning, learning a little bit about basic, even body weight movements, and split 6 hours on land, 6 hours in the pool? Probably. But if you're given homework, I think that you run the risk of like kids potentially not doing the exercises you want correctly. And if you could have 12 hours in the pool, 6 of them should be on land.
We're in California.
Yeah.
Swim is so popular
It
here
is.
because let's face it, it's sunny,
Mhm.
right? The weather's favorable and you can be in the pool year round without having to be indoor or have a heat or whatever. So, I think it provides a lot of value to our listeners, many of whom are parents, right? Or know someone who is a parent of a swimmer. It might be helpful to develop that BS meter
Yeah.
when looking for good coaches. I know that I'm a parent and I'm going to be looking very critically at every coach that I pass off my kids to. So if you had advice for parents out there that are like, maybe just without having to have a super hard conversation, know how to address every single answer a swim coach gives them. If they weren't going to have the conversation, what should they be seeing with their eyes to know that a single session and the structure of a week looks proper, their kids are going to be in good hands?
It's a great question. I think that the biggest optics that you should look for on a pool deck is the coach following his or her athletes up and down the pool. What I mean by that is like, is this dude just standing, pool's 25 yards, is he standing at the end of it and watching his swimmers swim up and down, or is he walking the side?
Ooh.
That's a big one. I think that
What would be what's the reason for walking versus standing? So people can understand why they need to do this.
there are times when a coaches like need to stand at one end because you're doing something that needs times read or that aspect of it. But most technical work or technical intervention is done from the side of the pool. That's how you can tell a coach is really involved and knows what's going on. If a coach is sitting down, that's a red flag. Coaches should never sit on a pool deck, in my opinion. I think that they should be moving up and down the pool and coaching, critiquing while they're walking up and down the pool. The other thing is like look for, if you go on Monday, are they doing the same thing the next week on a Monday? If you go on and then let's say you come back 3-4 weeks later, are they doing the exact same thing? There needs to be difference in what they're doing, because we all know that if they do the same thing constantly, accommodation, they're gonna accommodate and they're not gonna get any better. So just understand that, hey, good coaching looks what you would expect it to look like. And it looks like involvement. It looks like intervention in what they're doing, communication, and the plan. You don't necessarily have to know what it is, but just understand that you need to look for similarities, differences. Is this the same thing I'm seeing every time? And at the end of the day, is my child engaged? If you go to a practice and your child's not engaged and he's not getting what you think he should be or he or she should be, it's probably not good coaching.
Yeah, what we're reading just earlier today, Sam. I mean, like, obviously, keeping their enthusiasm high with the training, is going to lead to results. Whether you have a good plan or not, if they're having fun, a happy athlete is probably a high-performing athlete. Exactly. Man, the monotony of swim practice killed me.
That black line, man. That black line will make or break you. And if you keep that fun around it, people will stare at it all day.
Now, why is that so hard? Because, well, I don't want to assume. I think of the racing sports like track, right? The sprinters, and then the sprinters in the pool, right? You got your 4 strokes. Both, I mean, you train specifically for the event with the event.
Right.
Maybe one of the limitations of swim, maybe why you see the burnout and the overuse and the monotony so high in swim, because you're trapped in a pool and it's not as natural to humans. So you got to get really creative with the variations and things that are actually going to push their times forward. Yeah. So they find themselves doing the same strokes all the time. What makes swim such a uniquely difficult sport to train for?
Yeah, I think swim is one of those sports where like maybe cross country where it's so monotonous if you don't like you said, vary things. The biggest thing I think is coaches specialize their athletes at a very young age. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes is that you get a 14-year-old and you label that 14-year-old as you swim this event, because what happens when they start not making progress in that event? Oh. Then what? Because you'd imagine if you say, hey, you're a 200 breaststroke, or you're a 200 butterflyer, or you're a 50 freestyler, that they're training for that all the time.
What's the right age to specialize in your opinion?
I personally would say that maybe right before they go to college, the summer before they go to college.
What if they're going to get their scholarship in, basically?
Yes. Okay. And kids will always have events that they're better at. But the thing is, you have to understand, like track, the kids, like whatever event they're the best at, that's the event they're going to care the most about. Ooh. And so they're going to want to train that way, and you can't let them, because that's when you start to see burnout. The minute that they don't make progress in that event, or the minute that training, you've zoned in on that one aspect of, hey, I'm training for the 100 fly. You get slower at the 100 fly, you're not getting better. You have no other way to pivot. And swimming is one of those sports where you could be 18 years old and your best event could be the 500 free your whole life. And then you absolutely, if you train correctly and you train every stroke your whole life, your 100 fly, you could make a Division I NCAA cut. And it just totally depends. My wife, who is an incredible swimmer, and
17th in the nation when she retired.
Yes,
okay,
yes,
you have to throw that in there, Sam.
She went to NCAA's, Olympic trials, was a much better athlete than I ever was. She was one of those people that trained all the strokes all the time. When she got to college, her best event was the 100 backstroke. And she got to college, and she ended up having the 17th fastest time in the country in the 100 butterfly. So like they did it right. They did right by her, and they had trained her. We call it IM, the individual medley. If you train kids at like every stroke all the time, and you're constantly changing, hey, this week we're focusing on this stroke, this week we're focusing on this stroke, I think that's enough variation to keep people interested. But I do think that the last thing I'll say on this is the overtraining of swimmers contributes to that monotony a lot, because swimming is boring in itself at times, and just the more swimming is not better.
Monotony leads to overtraining.
That's right.
Yeah, 100%. So, okay, so you were a very accomplished swimmer on your own. Mm-hmm. We would be remiss not to like inquire, what made you so good, dude? Like, what were you doing that you think maybe like led to that success? Are you just a freak of nature, or was it the way you trained outside? What happened?
I think that at a very young age, I was just really competitive, and I liked the idea that I didn't have to rely on anyone else in the sport, and I could like work really, really hard and get results from it. And so that played a massive role. But as I got older, I was not a very good long course swimmer, which is the 50-meter pool, the Olympic size pool. I was so much better at the short course pool because I was a lot stronger than everybody else. And I loved the strength aspect of what we did outside of the pool and what we did in the pool. And Chris knew that about me. And so when I was training, we called it dry land, but it's basically strength conditioning. I wanted to squat heavy and we did a lot of dumbbell jumps. And then we would pair that stuff with cord work, like you're attached to a cord in the pool, or you're attached to, we call them buckets, where it's two buckets attached to cords, you have a belt on, and you're swimming and pulling the bucket. And the best year that I ever had swimming, and the most accolades or fastest I ever swam was when I was doing that type of training. Was I was marrying strength and speed, and then I was getting power from that.
Wow. I freaking love it. So those are like resisted in the sprinting world. Those would be resisted sprints,
Exactly.
right? Is there overspeed training in swimming?
It's actually
Like with
cool.
bungees or
It's
what?
very cool because it's like in my opinion, it's like the easiest way to do overspeed, because what you do is you grab onto the wall and you attach a cord like to your stomach, right? And you have your partner walk all the way down to the end of the pool and hold it, and then you push off and go, and your partner reels you in.
Oh,
So you just pull, and the cord kind of does its work because it's pulling the slack constantly, but you're just reeling constantly. And we would contrast we would do like the buckets to the overspeed, and we would contrast. So I didn't understand any of that then. I was just like, this is cool. I feel great doing this.
it's the same thing we do with our track
Mhm.
kids. The
is.
exact same thing. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Well, very good, man. Okay, so I'm not going to make Josh mad tonight. Okay, we got him on the first time around. Okay,
Yeah.
guys, if you want to hear Sam's incredible story and his overcoming experience getting into college and what makes him a great strength coach today, what his life's mission is, listen to part one. Essentially, would have been on our Train to Win podcast. Okay, we wanted to go more of a training route with this one, being that Sam is such an accomplished coach, and to hear his insights on really how he would train swimmers long term, knowing what he does now. You guys can find Sam at
Sammy_Y22 on Instagram.
very good, and I'm just going to speak for him. Guys, he's an open book when it comes to this kind of stuff. So if you've got a child that you would like to start swimming competitively, or maybe you're seeing symptoms of what we were talking about tonight and don't know where to turn or how to solve, guys, he would love to help. Okay, Mr. Steve, where can they find you, man?
7420 District Boulevard.
Very good. And guys, you can always find me at Blake Bernard Coaching on Instagram. Okay, this has been another episode of Muscle Matters, and we will see you guys next week. Peace out.